If you're anything like me, then you probably eat way too much at Christmas time. For me, when I see the turkey on the table with all of the trimmings, it's just absolutely irresistible, and I always overdo it. I always pig out and eat too much. But why do we do this? Why are we so bad at controlling ourselves during Christmas time? And what are some strategies from behavioral science that we can use to help control how much we eat during Christmas, but also during the rest of the year? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Let's talk about why we eat too much at Christmas. So the first reason we eat too much at Christmas, I'm going to call saintly sinning and sinning saints. And this is a more fun way of saying what behavioral scientists might describe as moral regulation. The idea behind moral regulation is that when we do something bad, we then feel like we have to do something good to make up for it, and when we do something good, we then feel more licensed to do something bad, because essentially we've earned good karma. The way this applies to Christmas is that both forces are actually at play to get you to eat more food. On the one hand, you've just gone and bought a bunch of gifts for your loved ones, and gift giving, well, that's generally universally seen as a very positive thing to do for people, and as a result of that, you might feel more licensed to indulge yourself at Christmas because you have all of this kind of good karma built up from all this altruistic behavior that you've just been engaging in over the last couple of months. On the other hand, you might be anticipating that you're going to be more good in the future. Because of where Christmas lies in the year, so close to New Year's Day, many of us are going to be arriving in 2023 or whatever new year you're approaching with the expectation that in the new year you're going to be a much better person. Maybe you're going to quit smoking, maybe you're going to go on a diet, maybe you're going to start working out more. I know that that's going to be my New Year's resolution when we get to 2023. And as a result of that, you might be more tempted to sort of overindulge yourself at Christmas with the idea that you'll make up for it later. It's the idea of anticipating being good later, and therefore you can indulge a bit more right now. In behavioral science, this is a really important concept to understand because it drives a lot of very irrational behavior. Like, for example, when people go to the gym and then go to a fast food chain straight afterwards. That's why you often see McDonald's right outside of gyms, because they know that this kind of moral licensing behavior means that McDonald's is going to get a lot of good business. People are going to either eat McDonald's and then try and burn it off in the gym, or go to the gym and then feel like they've earned themselves at McDonald's afterwards. Moral licensing, super interesting topic, and I'll definitely cover it more in a future video, so subscribe if you want to see that. So the second reason why people might eat too much at Christmas is due to something called proportionality bias. This is the idea that when we see a large challenge, we think it needs a large solution, and on the converse, when we see a small challenge, we think that that deserves only a small solution. When it comes to Christmas, you see this huge spread, which is far more than you usually expect to see at a dinner table. This essentially poses a large challenge, and what your proportionality bias will make you do is lean into the idea that that big challenge therefore needs a big response from you, aka you eating far more than you usually do. This bias is useful most of the time, but a lot of the time it's actually incorrect and can lead to poor decision making. Christmas is one example, but it's also something that companies do all the time. When they have a huge business problem, like they are losing maybe many millions of dollars every single month, they think that the solution to fixing that problem requires also a huge investment from them, maybe many hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in order to try and fix that problem, because there's no way that something small could fix something so large. However, we know from behavioral science that often small things can have a massive difference on companies. For example, just changing which option is the default on a form can often have massive effects on companies' profits and bottom line. So if you feel like you eat too much at Christmas and you're being subject to moral licensing and proportionality bias, then here's a little trick that you can use to control your eating. So if you want to help control your eating and don't want to rely on willpower to do so, then this is a way that you can do this. And this applies at Christmas, but also throughout the whole year as well. And that idea is to simply use a smaller plate. Here's why this works. The first reason why a small plate works is the obvious one, which is that it just adds friction to adding too much food to your plate. When you have a small plate, that acts as a limit for how much you can have in one go, which means that if you want to eat more than that, you then have to go up and get a second serving. This small plate therefore acts as a natural control, a natural restriction on your behavior, and what we know from behavioral science is that a little bit of friction, a little bit of inconvenience can actually have a disproportionate effect on people's behavior. But the other, and what I personally think is the more interesting reason why using a small plate works, is due to something called the Delboeuf illusion. And this is what the Delboeuf illusion looks like. So as you can see from the Delboeuf illusion, when the outer ring is smaller, it makes the filled ring in the center look larger, even though in both cases the filled ring in the middle is actually the same size. Now imagine that outer ring is the edge of your plate and the filled ring in the middle is the food that you're putting onto it. What this is showing us is that through the Delboeuf illusion, illusion. When your plate is smaller, it actually makes the same amount of food look like more because it's filling up more of that plate. On the converse, using a larger plate can make the same amount of food look like it's too little because it's not filling up the entire circumference of the edge of your plate. As a result of that, by simply using a smaller plate, you're naturally going to want to take less because it's going to look like more on that plate. So those are some simple tips for how you can eat less during Christmas, but also throughout the rest of the year. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, then stick around for tomorrow because we have a very special Christmas behavioral science video. It's a Nudgemas Carol. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.